So if we want to act in new ways around our money in order to have a new result, we have to start all the way upstream at the nervous system. Otherwise, we are missing essentially the entire iceberg. And people who talk about like, oh, all you need to do is learn a budgeting app, or, oh, it's your mindset. They are talking about the teeniest, tippitest top of the iceberg, and they haven't even gotten close to what's really gonna move the needle in a permanent and effective way.
Let's go.
Imagine having enough money to pay your bills, to get out of debt, and actually have plenty left over to enjoy your life. Well, my guest today's truly serendipitous story is going to inspire you to stop making excuses and start facing some of your deepest fears around money. Welcome back to another episode of This Magic Life. I'm your host, Andrea Koppel. If you're watching the show right now on YouTube, or maybe you're listening on Apple or Spotify, make sure to subscribe to This Magic Life wherever you get your podcasts. That way, you'll get notified anytime a new episode drops. All the links are in the description below. My wonderful next guest, Kate Northrup, is an entrepreneur. She is a best-selling author and a financial freedom advocate who helps people cultivate a healthier, more fulfilling relationship with their money. She is the author of 2 books, including Money, a Love Story, and she's got a fantastic podcast called Plenty, which I was binging earlier this week for hours and hours and hours during my long drive from Rhinebeck, New York, back here to Maryland. How did you go from thinking you were going to manage an art gallery to becoming the finance fairy godmother that you are today?
Well, I got myself into a lot of credit card debt right after college. I moved to New York City, which remains one of the most expensive cities in the world. And I did not manage my money well. I just kind of bought what I wanted to, went on whatever trips I wanted to. I did have a business, so I did have control over my income, but I was too focused on making more money and not nearly focused enough on taking good care of the money I already had. And, if I could go back in time, I would be like, girl, put some of this money away because of the magic of compounding interest, which we can talk about. But anyway, hindsight is 2020. And so I got myself into a bunch of credit card debt. Despite listening to the financial experts and reading the financial well-being books, I just could not get myself to do the behaviors that I knew I needed to do. Personal finance is not hard. You got to spend less than you make, put away money for savings. That's it, right? It's simple math. So it's not that it's hard to understand the concept, but why do we not do it, right? That's a whole other conversation, which we can dive into. I was not doing it. And all the financial experts I was listening to, their advice made me feel bad about myself. I just felt shame and guilt and everything was you've been bad. And I didn't like the way it felt. And the truth about me is I'm not going to do something unless it's fun. I'm just not. And at the time I was studying at a place called Mama Gina's School of Womanly Arts, which is about how to have your way in the world through fun and pleasure. And I was just okay, how can I pay off my debt with fun and pleasure? And so I created a curriculum for myself, and I was able to pay off all of my debt and triple my income and double my savings in a matter of about 6 months.
Oh
despite having tried
my
to do it
God.
for years previously.
So is that a story by any chance, Kate, of serendipity?
Well, it's a story of choosing myself. And
Mm,
that story is basically, I mean, there's so many different layers, a lot of different places we could go with this. But one of the things that was running under the surface for me unconsciously was this unconscious belief that I could either be financially successful or I could be partnered, like I could be matched romantically. Because as my mom got more successful, my parents got divorced. And that's their own story, but the meaning I made of it as a adolescent was, oh, financial success as a woman means you'll end up alone. And so I had this constant foot on the gas and the brake at the same time, which is I want to make great money. I want to be super successful. But my unconscious was like, don't do that. You'll never live out your dreams of getting married and having kids and having a beautiful family. So I would either sabotage myself with my business or I would sabotage myself with my money, with my dating, one or
mm.
the other. And so finally, I was like, enough. Finally, that belief became conscious. And I was like, this is not doing me any favors. And I was hanging out with all single women who were really financially successful. And I was like, okay, that's also lovely, but it's only deepening this limiting belief. And so what I did is I was like, okay, one of my greatest shortcuts for changing a limiting belief has always been to get around people who have lives that prove that limiting belief wrong. And so I was like, who do I know who is really financially successful, living their purpose, and also really well matched in romance with someone they're incredibly attracted to, just having a delicious love affair with, and also that person is really successful and living their passion and their purpose. And so immediately I came up with Rodney Yee and his wife, Colleen Seidman Yee. And I was like, great, I'm going to go do their 300-hour yoga teacher training just so that I can be around that energy to update my own belief system and just be around them so that I can update my psyche with like, this is possible. And I think like literally the weekend after I graduated, I met this guy who did not live in New York, was really different than anyone I had ever dated before, had ever been like interested in before, like really, really different. And 6 months later, after we had hung out only 2 times, but kept in touch, he was very like communicative. I invited him to go on a road trip with me and drive across the country, which was completely random and out of the blue, but my intuition was so strong. It was just like, I was planning on going on this road trip. I sold all my stuff. I was dismantling this business relationship I had with my mom. I was like really just needing to change my life in a very big way. And one of the things I had learned about in yoga teacher training was the importance of telling the truth and how our bodies will always tell the truth. And I was repeatedly getting sick in this weird way. And I knew I needed to like change my life in a dramatic way. So, but I had such a strong intuition to invite this guy, Mike, to come with me just for 5 days. And it was not even a romantic invitation. It was just like, hey, random invite. Do you want to drive across the country with me from Buffalo to Phoenix, like, second week or first week of February? And long story short, he said yes. 5 days turned into 10 months. And we ended up living on the road together on a trip that I called the Freedom Tour. I blogged, I taught workshops, and he is now my husband and business partner. And we've been together for nearly 14 years. He got in the car February 2nd, 2011 and never left.
Oh my God. It could either be like a story of extreme stalker-like behavior
Yeah.
or like the most romantic story ever.
Yeah.
So do you think, Kate, when you say you have super strong intuition. Is that something that you intentionally worked on honing in your 20s? What was it that told you, Kate, take this yoga instructor training?
I will say big credit to my mom. My mom always taught me I could trust myself. And that if I had like a hunch, that I was probably right. And she also taught me to look for signs. So, like another just example, um, in college, I was considering a travel abroad program, and my mom and I were sitting in a restaurant in Yarmouth, Maine, which is the town I grew up in. It's a very small town, like 9,000 people. And I was talking about, okay, should I go to this study abroad program in Italy, or should I go crew on this schooner and go live at sea and like do oceanographic research? And this guy, this like old guy with a beard from the next table was like, "Hey, are you talking about the Sea Education Association?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, I've been a captain on those ships for like 12 years. And once a year, I come here to the Royal River Grill House for a cup of clam chowder. And just if you're thinking about doing that program, you should absolutely do it. So I just like live in the land of signs, and that communication is coming to us for what our divine path is from inside and outside at all times. But we can turn up the volume or like practice tuning our receiver to that channel. The channel is always transmitting information, but we're just not always tuned to the channel. And so that channel shows up for me in like very strong feelings to do something like the yoga teacher training or this sailor guy, or any number of stories that happen. And I think that our job is to listen and take action so that the universe will keep sending the communications. If we don't listen, the signal dies down.
I love that story. I mean, the idea that the universe placed that old sea captain
It was wild.
at the table right next to you on that one
Yeah,
day a
one day, because
year.
I was visiting my mom home from college. I wasn't even living there. Like it was so like out
Random.
of a movie. And I was like, all right, well, I guess that makes that decision.
Oh my God. So how did the Freedom Tour push you or pull you in a direction in your career, Kate, a serendipitous direction that you couldn't have predicted?
Well, during the Freedom Tour, so Mike and I met through a direct sales company where we were both sales reps selling vitamins. And so the Freedom Tour, I was blogging and I was, kind of on this personal discovery adventure, but I was also teaching these workshops that were lead generators for my business. And so I was teaching those workshops, and they were called Women in Wealth, and they were designed to get women thinking about money in new ways. But what ended up happening is those workshops sort of took on a life of their own, and they became an attraction in and of themselves. If somebody says to me, "What's your vision?" or "What's your 5-year plan?" I'm like, I literally have no idea. I don't know how to answer that question. But I always just focus on the next right thing, and like the breadcrumb always comes, and I just go from one breadcrumb to the next breadcrumb and trust that I'm always being led, and it's always worked out.
Can I just say major chills, because one of the questions that I wanted to ask you is about breadcrumbs.
Oh.
And in fact, breadcrumbs that may have been around back when you were in high school or even younger, that were clues. And the reason that I raise that is that I think, and certainly they were there for me, and I know from the hundreds of people I've interviewed, oftentimes those clues around where our interests lie, where I don't even want to use the word passion, because I feel like that's a very big word to use especially for somebody who is either a teenager or maybe in their early 20s, because I think passions are often discovered and uncovered. But what were the breadcrumbs, Kate? The
Yeah.
clues that existed back when you were a kid that maybe this is something you would end up doing?
Well, hilariously, my mom, saved a few of those little things from growing up, those little things we did at school. And there was a first grade, or maybe it was second grade, first or second grade project where we had to make an About Me brochure. And
Yeah.
in my About Me brochure, it says, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, "I want to be an accountant," which is like, what 7-year-old girl, A, knows what an accountant is, or
Yeah.
B, wants to be one?
Right.
But
Well,
I just,
especially because your parents are both doctors. So
yes.
it's not like you had an accountant who
No, I
was,
mean, who says that? It really made me laugh because now I have little girls that age, and I was like, if one of my daughters told me they would wanted to be an accountant, I would be like, what? But I knew I liked money. I was like into money early. My sister and I started our first business. Her name is Anne, and it was called Queen Anne's Lace and Katydids. And we sold bracelets that we made and also wildflower bouquets that we had picked by the side of the road on this island in Maine. We had like a little roadside stand. And then we actually ended up doing a deal with the local gift shop where they carried our bracelets. And I was like 7. I was 7, she was 9. So I liked the idea that I could do something and make money. Like that I didn't have to wait for someone else to tell me what to do or whatever, that I could just create value out of nothing and and make money. And so I was into that. And I started my network marketing business when I was 14. But yeah, I was just like I was always into money. I always wanted Monopoly. My sister would get so mad. She would like throw the board across the room. I was just like into it. And I started reading books on personal finance when I was in high school.
yeah, not the usual path, I would say, for a future art
No.
historian.
And so back when you said about like, had I known you in college, would I have ever guessed that maybe you would be like have this platform about finance? I guess the answer is like possibly yes. Because I also in school, I took every single business class you could possibly take, except we didn't have a business department. I was at like a hyper liberal arts college where like saying the word business was blasphemy. God forbid anyone who going to a school that costs $60,000 a year would talk about money. So like that's a whole other thing.
Exactly.
So they hid all the business classes in the engineering department. And so I took all of them, but I did the art history degree because it required the least amount of credits, and I'm really good at memorizing dates.
Why is Kate Northrup, the money expert, preaching about the nervous system?
Because the results we get in our life, financially and otherwise, are mitigated by our nervous system. Everything starts in the nervous system. Our behavior is caused by our thoughts and beliefs. Our thoughts and beliefs are caused by our emotions. Our emotions are caused by our neural patterning, which is the neurons that run all throughout our body and our brain that respond to stimulus in our external environment in an immediate, automatic, unconscious way. And they cause our emotions, which causes our thoughts and beliefs, which causes our behavior, which of course causes our results. So if we want to act in new ways around our money in order to have a new result, we have to start all the way upstream at the nervous system. Otherwise, we are missing essentially the entire iceberg. And people who talk about like, oh, all you need to do is learn a budgeting app, or, oh, it's your mindset, they are talking about the teeniest, tippitest top of the iceberg, and they haven't even gotten close to what's really going to move the needle in a permanent and effective way.
So, what are some steps, some fundamental steps that our audience can take to start rewiring their nervous system, especially out of fear? into abundance.
Into abundance. So first of all, I want you to think about in this moment, what energetic communication, what emotional communication did you receive about money in your childhood? What were the associations that your nervous system may have had with money? And the reason I say that is that the nervous system speaks in energy. Literally, electricity is what a neural pattern is. It is an electrical current that runs from one neuron to another through a synapse. And so our bodies are constantly having electricity move through them as a form of communication, letting the rest of our body know what it needs to do. And the wiring of that gets formed based on what it felt like in our childhood environment when it came to money. For me, the environment, the energetic vibe around money was stress and pressure. So even though there actually technically was enough money, as you said, both of my parents were doctors. So there was enough money technically, but the nervous system does not do math. The nervous system does not speak in language. The nervous system speaks in energy, which means what did it feel like? And what it felt like was stress and pressure. So we have a nervous system thermostat, which gets set based on the childhood environment around money. And the childhood environment, meaning how did it feel? So think about that for a minute. How did it feel in your childhood when it came to money? Now, the nervous system will always recreate what it knows until we do something to change the thermostat setting. Because according to the nervous system, that which is familiar is safe. Our nervous system is deeply embedded with our limbic system. Our limbic system is the reptilian brain, the part of our body that is designed to keep us surviving. It is our survival brain. So it is constantly tracking for threat, safety, threat, safety, threat, safety. And the nervous system is like very primal. And it says that which is new is unsafe. That which is new is a threat. So if we had an environment of stress and pressure growing up, and we have an opportunity to learn something new or engage in a behavior that would create an experience of financial relaxation, our nervous system will do everything it can to prevent us from taking that action step because it does not want us to experience something new. It experiences that as a threat. So that's step one. What was it like growing up? What was the feeling? And then notice, what is your thermostat set at? Now, the tricky thing is, everything we want is largely something we haven't experienced before. And in many cases, it's also something no one else in our family has experienced before. And so that's where we get into all of the science of epigenetics and ancestral trauma and the way that we inherit the blessings and limitations of our ancestors in our DNA. And so now the next step is, okay, it's like, what is my thermostat? And then what is my desire? What is my goal? Okay, are those two things a match? So like if my nervous system thermostat around money is set at stress and pressure, it will constantly create scenarios where I feel stress and pressure because stress and pressure feels like home. But what I really want is a feeling of relaxation and a feeling of financial spaciousness and a feeling of abundance and ease. But that's at direct odds with my neural patterning. So what do we do about that? Well, we do two things. Number one, we learn to, on a daily basis, dump our stress and threat bucket as much as possible to open up new energetic capacity to rewire our nervous system. Our nervous system is like the electrical system in a house. If you need to redo the entire electrical system, it's expensive. You got to hire an electrician. You got to pull out all the walls. You got to do all the rewiring. You got to buy all that stuff. Then they have to redo the walls, the drywall, the paint, right? It's expensive. It is the same thing in our bodies. Our survival brain does not want us to expend the energy to create new neural patterns because it is energetically expensive and it's trying to conserve all the energy to keep us alive. So if we have an overflowing stress and threat bucket from daily life, let's say you've lost your job, you've moved, you've had a loss in the family, you've had a breakup, you've been sick a lot, like whatever it may be, or there's some global tragedy going on, there's so many different things. We have not been given by society the skills and support and the understanding of how to actually metabolize the stress so it doesn't stick in our bodies. And we're just walking around so freaking tightly wound. And there's so much stress that we're carrying. We've not learned how to actually complete the emotional stress cycle. And I highly recommend reading a book called Burnout by Emily and Amelia Nagoski if you want to learn more about this. But fundamentally, on a daily basis, you need to be doing one at least of the following: movement, laughing, crying, intentional breathing, creative expression, or connecting with safe community. Those are the things that metabolize daily stress, because our bodies are primal. They don't understand that, like, once the stressor has passed, we think, it's over now. No, your body doesn't know that because it never got a chance to metabolize and actually get the signal, it's safe now. But if you go for a run or have a dance party in your living room or have a really good cry or make
What
a
about
painting about
meditation?
it. So meditation is interesting. Meditation is tricky. So meditation is wonderful, obviously. But for people with a particular background of a lot of trauma or nervous system wiring that's hypervigilant, sitting in stillness will feel next to impossible and actually will feel like a threat to their well-being. So for many people, they'll need to work up to meditation. And actually, they're going to do better with daily practice of some of those other things first, and then maybe be able to add meditation in. Now, that's just from a nervous system perspective. I know for me, that was the case when I did that yoga teacher training. I was supposed to meditate every day and I couldn't do it. When I meditated, I felt like I was going to die. I could not handle the stillness. And I know people say that and you're like, oh, if you feel that way, you need meditation more. And it's from a nervous system perspective, it's actually too big of a leap for someone who is super tightly wound. But what I would do is when I was boiling my water for tea, I would just sit and breathe, even with my eyes open, for 1 minute. And then you can use what's called titration to do small, doable steps over time to expand your capacity. So that was the first thing, which is you got to dump the threat bucket every day. Then the second thing is acute nervous system drills. So let's say you are going in to negotiate for a new job, and you are, for the first time ever, negotiating your salary. And it feels really scary, and you want to just say yes to their offer, but you're not supposed to. So you're going to go in there and you're going to negotiate, right? Mindset coaches, high performance techniques, all this stuff will be like, you just need to psych yourself up. You just need to feel the fear and do it anyway. You just need to tell yourself a better thinking thought, a better feeling thought. The thing is, doing something that your body thinks is going to be a threat to its safety, you can't talk yourself out of the physiological sensation of fear. But the good news is you can signal to your body through sensation that your body is safe. And then you perform better. You say the right things. you are powerful, you are confident, you are magnetic. So how do we do that? Well, there's like a million different nervous system healing drills, and some of them are more appropriate than others at other times. But one of my favorite ones that I'll teach you right now is lower back rib breathing. The reason I like this one is you're always breathing anyway. And you can do it while you're driving. You can do it in a meeting. You can do it while you're walking. You can do it right now with us while you're listening to this podcast. So you just want to feel down on your back to where your lower ribs are in the back. They are lower than you think. It's like at your waist because your ribs make the top of your waist. And then you want to breathe, send your breath through your nose into the lowest back portion of your ribs. And then as I continue to talk, just keep sending your breath slow and intentional into the lower back ribs. So you're expanding that part. Now, what that does is it signals to your nervous system that there's no threat. It signals that the threat has passed. And it helps you to shift from a dysregulated nervous system that is in perhaps fight or flight, even if it's low grade, to a regulated state, which is tend, befriend, rest, digest, stay and play. And that is your most powerful nervous system response because you are in your fullest capacity, your fullest power. You have the most flow of cerebrospinal fluid from your brain to your body, the most flow of oxygenation from your left and right hemispheres. You are like firing on all cylinders. And the cool thing about nervous system work is it compounds. So what you did yesterday, you are building upon today, just like compounding interest.
I love that it came back to something financial.
Of course.
So I know when it comes to changing habits, forming new ones, like this would be, it's usually 21 days. Is that?
It's interesting. I love all of the like habit work. And what I find is that you don't actually really have to think about stuff like that. Like there's so much of that that's about like getting yourself to do something. When you work on healing your nervous system and you like stand in the grocery store line and breathe into your lower back ribs and you consciously do just one of those things I said every day to dump your stress and threat bucket, you just suddenly start to act in a new way. I mean, it takes a minute. So yes, maybe focus on 21 days. If you want to have a tracker, like it's probably a good idea. But in full transparency, I've never made it like a new habit. My body just starts to crave it. And so it's like eating. It's like I wouldn't need to do like a 21-day habit of eating. I just am going to eat every day because it's like you have to.
Yeah. So is this the foundational step to start getting into that right mindset?
Yes.
So that you can attract?
Yes, because a relaxed nervous system is a magnetic nervous system. A relaxed nervous system is a powerful nervous system. And the most relaxed person in the room is the most powerful person in the room. And so if you are really looking to shift your earning opportunities, if you're looking to shift your behavior around stewarding your money, if you're looking to really start investing and getting smart with money, learning to first feel safe engaging with money and changing your automatic nervous system response to money is going to be the foundational step. And then once you start feeling safe with money, you have all this extra capacity and you're like, suddenly it feels super easy to read that personal finance book or that personal finance blog or follow that advice of that podcaster and take action where before that didn't feel available. Or maybe before you would take the action, but then you would go sabotage yourself by like overspending at Target or, or mindlessly shopping online or, blowing it all on a trip to Mexico or something with your friends when and just like completely going past your budget. Like those are very common behaviors, and they are common behaviors of self-sabotage that are being caused by a nervous system that does not actually want you to change. So you have to tell your nervous system, hey, sweetie, I'm so grateful that you're trying to keep me safe. And so what I'm going to let you know is I actually am safe. and you can just come along with me.
So the feeling that so many young people have about their future, Kate, is one of fear and anxiety. And if where we place our attention is where we place our energy, how can they shift that? I know you've just given us some beautiful steps with the lower back breathing and movement and other modalities to rewire our nervous system. But how can they now take that beautiful energy and put it in a direct place it in a direction or on a thing that is going to help them build the future they want?
Yeah. So, first of all, it's to really understand that when we feel anxious, when we find we are in thoughts of fear and lack and scarcity, we are dysregulated. So, you have to first regulate yourself. And we already talked about how to do that, so I won't re-describe it. And again, there's like a million different ways to do it, and you'll find the ones that work for you. Once you are regulated, and by the way, you'll need to practice coming back a million times a day. This is not a one and done. But remember, it compounds. So every time you practice, that muscle gets stronger and it becomes easier next time. So it is always an investment that is paying off. Then I would really be mindful and conscious about who you're spending time with, what kinds of conversations they're having about money, what kind of content you're consuming. Is it hopeful or scary? What are you listening to? Who are you talking to? What are you reading? There are 8 billion people on the planet. Every single one of them is having a wildly different experience of being human. There is no way that everybody needs to be financially scared, or everybody, right? Like at any given moment, there are people who are experiencing tremendous expansion and peace and joy. And there are people who are experiencing a lot of contraction and fear. And my recommendation, now, is that always in our control? No. However, if anybody's read the beautiful book, Man's Search for Meaning by Dr.
Yes.
Viktor Frankl, it points to the large degree of choice we always have in terms of choosing life and choosing our response. He says that in between stimulus and response, there is a pause. And in that pause is our point of power, is the moment where we actually consciously can step in and decide, how am I going to respond to this moment? And part of the way we can do that is to remove negativity and anxiety causing content from our lives. And that includes if you have parents, friends, loved ones who are constantly banging the drum of financial fear and anxiety, you do not talk to them about money anymore. That topic is off the table because they're not helping you create a better future. That conversation is actually recreating more and more financial anxiety. No amount of worry is ever going to solve any problem. It's like, as I think it's Deepak Chopra says, worrying is like praying for what you don't want. It doesn't help.
Yeah. So surround yourself
With positivity.
With positivity.
And
Find
expansion.
your friends
and,
who
yes,
aren't.
Join an investment club. Start a reading group around possibility and personal finance books that are about expansion and financial well-being. Like, be the leader in your community who's like, hey, I'm changing this for my lineage. Who's in?
Love it. Kate, I just have 2 questions I try to ask all my guests. And the first one is, what advice can you offer our audience to help them invite or attract more serendipity more magical experiences in their life.
The more regulated you are, the more aware you will be of the synchronicity that was always there. When we are in fear and scarcity and limitation patterns, we cannot even see the magic. But when we feel relaxed and calm and safe, we literally see and experience all the magic that was there already. So doing anything you can to stay regulated, to remain regulated, for sure, is the best way that I know how. Yeah.
Beautiful. Looking in the rear view mirror of your life so far, what do you think has been the secret to the serendipity and the magic that you've experienced?
Heeding the signs, listening to the intuition that comes through the inside and taking action on it. Listening to the signs that come from the outside and taking action on it. I think that we are in a constant conversation with the universe. And just like if you were always calling over the fence to your neighbor, and if they never responded back, you'd stop calling over the fence. So you are the neighbor. The universe is calling over the fence. And if you're not answering, it will stop calling. But if you keep answering, it will keep calling. It'll keep sending things over.
And how have you managed to become a master manifester?
By practicing feeling good as often as possible.
One of Kate's 2 amazing books. You're going to want it. They're both going to be in our show notes. Money, a Love Story. I loved this book so much. It is written as what were you, about 30? Or were you still in your 20s when you were writing this?
I think I was like 29. I think it came out when I was 30. Yeah, it came out when I was 30. So I wrote it when I was 29.
So it really comes from that youthful exuberance but tremendously wise place because of all the personal and professional development Kate had already done at that point. Her podcast is called Plenty. If you want a surround sound of all the amazing advice that you heard just a little sample of today, you're definitely going to want to tune in. Kate, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and wish you many, many more magical moments to come.
Thank you.
Let's go.
Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of This Magic Life. Our mission is to inspire you to stop fearing your future and start getting excited about all the serendipitous and magical opportunities that await you. Make sure to subscribe to This Magic Life on YouTube so you don't miss any new episodes. And for on-the-go listening, give us a follow wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. We absolutely love to get feedback from the This Magic Life community, so make sure to drop us a comment on YouTube or a 5-star review on Apple. And you can always find me on LinkedIn at Andrea Koppel, aka the Career Magic Maker. I can't wait to see you soon.